So, if you're a film fan and you keep up with the film industry, then you're probably aware of the controversy surrounding the 2019 Oscars. It's not the first year that the Oscars have been controversial, but this year just took the cake. In the past, there was a lot of controversy around the lack of black people and women being nominated for Best Director. Sometimes there's controversy around the films being nominated, especially for Best Picture. But this year had the popular film category, Kevin Hart as host, pushing award categories to commercials. The list goes on. But all these decisions resulted in the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, which we just shortened to the Academy, going back on these decisions. The reason that they made some of these choices was because of the fact that 2018 Oscars was the second lowest rated Oscars in history, and this year was only slightly higher. However, it used to not always be this way. The Oscars used to be a genuine way of spreading the love of film. But today, it seems like the Academy's decisions are more controversial than ever.
Far away. Can I borrow it for Sunday church?
Seemingly more political. Many of the films that have won Best Picture since 2000 are very controversial in the sense that they were either offensive or subpar. It begs the question, why have the Oscars gone downhill? Well, it's difficult to chase down and find the answer, but I think I managed to do it. In order to find out what the deal with the Oscars is, we have to go back to the beginning. Films in the way we know them have been around since 1903 with the Great Train Robbery. The first feature-length film production was the 1915 Australian production, The Story of the Kelly Gang. The first film to feature sound was 1927's The Jazz Singer. And films became extremely popular during this time period. Movie theaters, then called Nickelodeons, were often sold out. With this popularity of films arising, it was going to get expensive to fund films. And people in all departments of filmmaking needed the proper support from people in the industry. So, in 1927, Louis B. Mayer, who was the head of MGM at the time, and a few other people invited 36 industry people, including actors, writers, directors, cinematographers, etc., and others to dine at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles to propose the foundation of an organization that would benefit the film industry. Thus, the Academy was born. Before the Oscars started, there was a book published by a committee called the Awards of Merit. It was 7 people, and it was a collection of lectures attended by over 150 cinematographers in the industry. And the second book, published years later, was meant to honor those who had made outstanding achievements in sound. The first ceremony at the Oscars itself was held on May 16, 1929, where the film Wings took home the head honcho prize of Best Picture. Except, at the time, it wasn't called Best Picture. It was first known as Outstanding Production, and it changed to Best Picture in the mid-1950s. But the Oscars was so popular that year that they were broadcast live on the radio the following year. The Oscars were even so popular that news publications released the list of winners that the Academy gave to them in advance to guess for the 1940 awards show, which prompted the sealed envelope method that is currently used. Over the years, the Academy has added a new category to the Oscars ballot. Film editing and original score and song in 1935, supporting actor and actress in 1937, special effects in 1939, foreign language film in 1947, so on and so forth. The Oscars were telecast in color for the first time in 1966. The Oscars was cast internationally for the first time in 1969, reaching over 200 countries. And the most recent major development for the Academy was the announcement of an Oscars museum to host the achievements of Oscar winners and nominees over the years. It was announced in 2012, and at the time of this video's production, it is yet to be completed. Now, that was a long summary of the Academy's history, and that's not even all of it. Probably only half, if even that. If you're interested in the rest of the story, the Academy website is a good source to read up on it. Now it's time to get into the Academy today. What's wrong with the Oscars? Well, part of the problem is due to the fact that what's actually being nominated in certain categories, especially Best Picture.
Bohemian Rhapsody, Graham King, producer.
Welcome to the Filthy Frank Show. If you're feeling suicidal, you've come to the right place. Because I want to fucking kill myself as well.
Half the time it has to do with the quality of the film itself, and the other half is about the controversies surrounding it. The controversy usually stops the film from taking Best Picture. If it's the frontrunner, the controversial one will win once in a blue moon. As a matter of fact, the film that ends up winning Best Picture is somewhat controversial as well. The last film that won Best Picture that wasn't controversial was probably Birdman back in 2015. It begs the question, why are some of these films controversial? Well, I'm going to take this year's winner, Green Book, as an example. In a brief explanation, the writers consulted Tony Lipstand with I'm Don Shirley's family, making the film extremely inaccurate. Viggo Mortensen used the N-word in a For Your Consideration screening Q&A for the film.
Let's make one thing perfectly clear. I'm gonna say some words down here I haven't had the chance to say before.
Where are you going with this, Frank?
Gonna say homie.
Oh, come on.
I'm gonna say bro.
Are you serious?
I'm gonna say my man.
Well, now you're just
Gonna
stereotyping.
say folk show.
Okay.
I'm gonna say the N-word.
Co-writer Nick Vallelonga made an Islamophobic tweet endorsing then presidential candidate Donald Trump. And finally, co-writer and director Peter Farrelly apparently flashed his penis in front of female stars who worked on his previous films. And despite Green Book winning, the frontrunner was Roma for the majority of the season. Even that was slightly controversial. And the reason why is because Roma is a Netflix film and also entirely in Spanish. Neither a Netflix film or a foreign language film has ever won Best Picture. In fact, Roma is the first Netflix movie to ever be nominated for Best Picture. There's also a slight concern surrounding the director Alfonso Cuarón having made a short film for Autism Speaks, which has been criticized for being extremely ableist in the past. But considering that Alfonso apologized for the film around the time that his film Gravity was released, which I should mention was an even bigger hit at the Oscars than Roma was, I highly doubt this affected the Academy's overall decision, especially since Alfonso himself literally won all of the Oscars for Roma, including foreign language film and cinematography. What a crazy talented guy. But anyway, if we're going to look at all the nominees for Best Picture, the vast majority of them received some level of controversy. In fact, the only one that didn't have any controversy was The Favorite, which won one single Oscar for Best Actress, Olivia Colman, which I should probably mention was well-deserved. Sorry, Lady Gaga stands, but Olivia Colman deserved it.
Maitland, stop. What?
Stop! Enough! Stop! Be gone! I command it! Leave! I don't want to hear it!
Anyway, everything else was at least a little bit controversial. Black Panther was the first superhero movie to be nominated, yet people ask, why this, but not The Dark Knight? BlacKkKlansman is controversial, how the filmmakers changed the story to make it more cinematic, plus some of the things that director Spike Lee has done in the past, including releasing an elderly couple's address thinking it was George Zimmerman's address. Bohemian Rhapsody has too many controversies for me to list here. A Star is Born is the third remake of a 1937 film with the same name and is basically the same story all over again. And Vice has been heavily criticized for being extremely biased against Dick Cheney while also being extremely messy and cluttered. And I've already explained the other three. Now, I'm not going to argue about whether or not any of these films are good or bad. That's what my letterbox is for. But this is why some people in the Academy and industry would be opposed to picking most of these films for Best Picture other than 3 or 4. But George, you're probably asking, how does the Academy vote for the Oscars? Well, it's mostly pretty simple. The Oscar ballot has 24 categories. Best Picture has 8 to 10 each year. Makeup and hairstyling has only 3, and the other 22 have 5. For 23 categories, including makeup, all 8,000 members vote for one nomination. Whichever has the most votes wins. Best Picture, however, is very different. For Best Picture, the Academy uses a preferential ballot. Bear with me for a moment, because this is going to take a little bit to explain. Academy members rank the nominees, and the first one that's past 50% is the winner. But here's the catch. Whichever had the least votes gets eliminated, and everyone's vote is cast to whatever's ranked next on their ballot. And the process keeps going until a film gets over 50%. If you still need some help understanding that, I'll link a video in the description where there's a better demonstration of the process. So if you ever wondered why certain films win over others, that's the reason why. I included that part in there about the Oscar voting, just to break down how these are decided. But now we're going to get into the politics of it. Why are the Oscars so political? Quite frankly, it's because everything is political nowadays. Politics, I feel, is a big factor in why most people are watching the Oscars. It has to do with celebrity culture, partly, because there are celebrities who are willing to get up on stage at the Oscars and share a political ideology. One major example is the 2018 Oscars, when Jimmy Kimmel hosted. Again, Jimmy Kimmel's opening monologue was Trump jokes every 5 seconds, Harvey Weinstein jokes every 5 seconds. It was all political. Everything about it was political. And obviously, that Oscars was following the Me Too movement, the Time's Up, following the people like Harvey Weinstein, Kevin Spacey, Charlie Rose, and a few other people being outed as rapists. So yeah, I get that, but Jimmy Kimmel tends to... I'll just play it for you.
But what happened with Harvey and what's happening all over was long overdue. We can't let bad behavior slide anymore. The world is watching us. We need to set an example. And the truth is, if we are successful here, if we can work together to stop sexual harassment in the workplace, if we can do that, women will only have to deal with harassment all the time at every other place they go.
Now, here's the thing. I completely agree that Harvey Weinstein is a terrible person. I think he is scum of the earth, and I think his punishment should be biblical. But what Jimmy Kimmel does is he places the blame on all men, saying that once we get rid of the rapist scum in Hollywood, then we'll only have to deal with sexual harassment everywhere else they go. No, Jimmy, that's not true. The people who actually do get away with rape are people who are as powerful as Harvey Weinstein. Someone who is in as high a position as he is, because they're rich and have so much influence. Not everyone else has that influence. An ordinary person who rapes someone is punished for it, and sentenced to prison for it, ostracized for it. By doing this, he is assuming that a larger portion of men than there actually is sexually harass or assault women. I'm not easily offended, but I find this pretty offensive. I've never sexually assaulted a woman. I would never sexually assault a woman. I have never met anyone who has ever sexually assaulted a woman, and I don't associate myself with people who have ever sexually assaulted a woman or would sexually assault a woman. How dare you, Jimmy? How dare you? Yeah, that was a very brief rant on my political stance. If you want my full thoughts on Jimmy Kimmel, then Imp Lemon sums it up pretty well. I agree with pretty much everything he says about Jimmy Kimmel. But he's not really the only one. There are other cases too. So why does politics actually affect people who view the Oscars? Other than people who get up there and talk like they're better than us. Well, there's not really any other reason other than it's just kind of vapid, and some people don't really understand how the Academy works. When Emma Stone made the comment about
These four men and Greta Gerwig created...
I don't think she understood the fact that the Academy realistically won't see that many movies directed by women. Mostly because they're not marketed well enough. So you just fall back on them and put them on the back burner. Because apparently movies by women don't make money. And some of these same people are complaining about the lack of women being nominated for Best Director. And I'm not saying I disagree with that. I think there definitely should be more women nominated for Best Director. But I'm also realistic about what the Academy is going to see. And of course, several celebrities are anti-Trump. So a lot of Trump jokes get in.
None other than President Trump called Get Out the best first 3 quarters of a movie this year.
I think another part of the problem with celebrity politics is that they think that all their solutions are going to solve everything. We saw mass shootings, ban assault rifles, and the NRA. Sure, it doesn't matter if mental health, bad parenting, social experiences, etc. Just ban assault rifles. And let me just make this clear. I think the NRA is a corrupt organization. But I also agree with the statement that banning all assault rifles or assault weapons is going to solve everything. There's more to it than just banning a certain type of gun. And also, talking about Trump and his apparent racism and sexism isn't going to stop racism and sexism. I don't like Trump. I think he's an arrogant misogynist. But constantly talking about how he's sexist is not going to stop sexism. You know what is going to stop sexism and racism? Not talking about them.
How are we going to get rid of racism and
Stop talking about it.
Here's a point that Ido's made in his content cop on Tana Mojo. And yes, I know iDubbbz is a meme, but he actually makes a good point here.
It's literally like the definition of desensitizing society to the N-word and taking us a million steps back.
Tana, you are dumb. It is the exact opposite. This is a very important lesson in critical thinking. Have you or your friends ever said a word so frequently that it's lost a lot of the initial punch that it had, and eventually it just lost all meaning entirely? You should say yes, because it happens all the time. I remember initially hearing the word cunt and how awful that sounded, but I've used it so frequently that it means fucking nothing to me now. Cunt. Cunt. Tech cunt. Tech cunt here. Okay, cunt. So all of you people out there who hold these words at such high esteem, you are giving it the power that you so desperately want it to not have.
So, what am I saying with all this? Why do the Oscars really matter? Well, I kind of wanted to make this video because I have a sentimental value, a sentimental connection to the Oscars. I am a huge film fan. I love movies. I love watching movies. I love a lot of the movies the Oscars picks. I can sit there and tolerate the political stuff just because I want to see good movies win. But something has definitely gone wrong with them. The past 2 years, I've really only watched them so that I can make fun of them. And they are pretty funny to make fun of. But I have some sentimental value. I don't think everything in this video is going to change something. My video is probably not going to get that big in the first place. Even if it does, it's not going to change everything about the Academy or about the Oscars. I just wanted to make this video because I have a sentimental connection to them. I certainly don't think that they're the worst thing ever. They're not the best thing you can watch on television, but they're not the worst thing on television. That's just the whole scope of entertainment. You criticize something that you love because you want it to be better. I love watching the Oscars, even if I'm just watching it to make fun of them. And since I love watching them so much, I want to criticize them. I want to point out critiques and try to make them better. And again, I'm not saying that everything I'm saying in this video is going to be realized and people are going to try to change it. If I'm going to offer some real solutions, I say try to keep the politics to a minimum, nominate quality films, and don't completely ignore the controversy, but don't let something silly get in the way of picking it, and change the preferential voting system. The way you vote for all the other categories is perfectly okay. Just use that for Best Picture too. I'm not saying that the Academy has to nominate movies like Avengers Endgame all the time, because that would be really boring. There's plenty of great movies out there that you can watch for yourself. And probably the best thing about the Oscars is that they spread the attention about these movies. Some people might not have even heard of great movies like Roma or The Favorite if it weren't for the Oscars. There's a whole world of cinema out there that you can discover just beyond your local movie theater. A lot of them are very easily accessible as well. So I wanted to spend this first episode of Hollywood Geographic discussing something that's close to my heart that I feel has become very flawed over the past few years. I hope that I one day win an Oscar for one of my movies. It's a dream of mine. And I know it's a very cliche dream, but it's a literal, actual dream of mine to win an Oscar. So maybe one day I'll do it. But who knows? Maybe the Academy will see this video, and if I'm not, it'll be like, maybe not. All joking aside, this is Hollywood Geographic. The Oscars.
I need to preface this by saying this video is not a joke, in case you're out of the loop. This is not some sort of meme or troll. This is 100% real, and I'm being as serious as I can. Now, this is a situation that is really horrible for everybody involved.
Greta Gerwig is the first woman to be nominated for a director in 8 years.
And it was my intention to keep the details of it private for as long as I could, until everybody was around. I guess, to give their side of the story. But now I've been placed between a rock and a hard place with people pushing a false narrative, trying to make me look like some sort of bad guy when I am completely convinced I did nothing wrong. So just for the sake of transparency and to, I guess, keep my reputation intact or whatever, I'm just going to say everything that happened, every detail from beginning to end. On Friday night, Friday the 23rd, at, I don't remember what time, probably 10 or 11 at night, I received a Discord call from Asperger Brandon, I'm going to call him Brandon for this, his girlfriend Jackie. And she was kind of hysterical, which makes sense. She was crying and begging me as I answered the phone to help her, to stop him. What was happening was Brandon had relapsed again and was blackout drunk and had been violently attacking her over the course of the night. She said that he had strangled her so hard that she actually thought she was going to die. He bit her as hard as he could on her thigh. He'd been punching her around, and evidently she was covered in blood and that there was blood splatter on all the walls. She had tried to call for help, but he had taken her phone, her cell phone, and had thrown it, and she thought it was broken, but she managed to lock herself in the attic to protect herself, and he was trying to break the door down to get to her. And I guess that's when she retrieved some sort of second cell phone that had internet access on it and was able to call me on Discord, begging me to help her. So I stayed on the phone with her and tried to keep her calm. Well, Sheepover, my girlfriend, called the police and sent them to interfere, which Jackie was very much against. She was telling me, I don't want to call the police. I just want him to stop. I want somebody to calm him down. So it was never a question. The police had to be called to save her life because she was in terrible danger. She had been beaten. The police showed up, and unfortunately, when they went in to talk to the police, she didn't take the phone with her, so I could only hear bits and pieces of it because the phone was in the wrong room. But they talked to the police for about half an hour, and from what I heard, Jackie kept telling them she didn't want to press charges. She just wanted him to stop. The police got a little tour of the house and saw all the damage. They saw all the bruising on Jackie's neck and the bite marks on her thigh and all the blood splatter all over. And despite her not wanting to press charges, the police decided that this was a felony offense, and they arrested Brandon. And they took him in.